Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today I've got a bit of a twofold guide that I have put together and I want to present to you all. The first part of it is I want to give you all tips on managing the influx of loot that you obtain in the Division 2, and the second is tips on how to keep your inventory and stash size spaces reduced. Right, the Division 2 is a very loot-heavy game. You are constantly managing and distributing items across your inventory and stash, and while it's not as sexy as a topic as some of the other things we've covered before here on the channel, it is still a very vital one to the Division 2 experience, and therefore I thought it might be useful to put a guide together about it. Now, a lot of people I talk to claim that they have a hard time keeping their inventory and stash space down, and they have a hard time kind of figuring out what to do with new gear that they get. I am somebody who plays this game very regularly, as this channel would suggest, and I only have one character out of a total of 4 slots that we get, and I have a mostly full but not overflowing stash. Now, hearing that might be a surprise to some people, and some might be asking, how do you do it? So, whether you need help sorting through your stuff, you're looking to downsize your collection, whatever it may be, I hope that this helps. And if it does, or you just enjoyed the video, then be sure to click that subscribe button. I got a lot more coming your way. But let's go. So I want to start off with an important message on this entire topic. When it comes to sorting, storing, and just general item management in the Division 2 in games like this, it is very subjective. People have different ideas of how they should do it. They have a different idea of what sort of items they want to keep, where they want to put it, all of that stuff. So the best I'm going to be able to do in this video is share you my own methods and tips on how I handle these things, and hopefully it can help someone out, or at the very least you can get an idea of how to improve your situation using your specific preferences on these subjects if you're in need of some help in that area. But yeah, let's start out with inventory management, right? How do I efficiently sort through all of the new gear that I collect in the Division 2? Firstly, I think it's important that we point out the different tools that are available to players in this regard. The first of which I want to point out is the All Gear tab. You'll find this in your inventory menu, right above where your cache selection menu is and right below where your pistol is. And what it is a window that tracks, like the name suggests, all gear in your inventory. Now, firstly, what this lets you do is it lets you sort by stat role. So if you see the menu and options at the bottom, you can click the filter option, select whatever stat you might be looking for, and now only items with that specific stat will show up in this category. So if there's something in particular you're looking for, that is a great first step to find it. But additionally, this is one of the ways that you can access the kind of sub-menu that exists for inventory management. Now, it's important to note you can access this menu from this tab or any other gear tab. So let's say you click on your masks or your chest pieces or whatever. Once you do that, if you're in any of these sub tabs and you click down on your left stick on controller, I'm not sure what the keybind is on PC, but you can see it down at the controls at the bottom, it now opens this menu, which offers you some pretty great ways to customize your experience when it comes to inventory management. The first thing I'll point out is that over on the left side, you can switch between list and grid. This is 2 different ways that you can have your gear display within your inventory. So mess around with those 2 and see which one you like more. But perhaps the most important thing here is on the right side, you have your sorting preferences. And what this selection does is it allows you to choose how your gear displays in your inventory. You can choose between stuff like quality, you can have stuff that's marked as junk appear at the top, armor value, whatever you like. What I personally use is the one labeled new, and what that does is that when you have gear that drops on the ground and you pick it up, it goes to your inventory. If you have your sorting preference set to new, it means that anytime you click on the specific category that it goes to, so let's say I picked up some new knee pads, if I click on my knee pad category, that item or any new knee pads that I've just picked up will appear at the very top of the list. And what that means is that it's then super easy for me to look at the new items I've gotten and decide what to do with them from there. Additionally, you can now use this sorting preference and that all gear tab in combination. So if I pick up a bunch of gear, let's say through a countdown run or whatever content I'm doing, I can go into my inventory, click that one tab, and if it's set to new, then all of the new stuff I've picked up is right at the top for me to sort through what I want and what I don't. So it can be extremely useful. One thing to note is that this all gear tab does not include weapons, but you can also just sort through those pretty quickly by going to the weapons tab because they all group together. And again, if you choose new or any other sorting option, that will apply to weapons as well. So those are some of the main tools that I wanted to point out for this section. As far as actual tips on inventory management, the biggest one I can give is just to have some idea of what you're looking at. Now, I understand if you're just starting out in the Division 2, there's really going to be a learning process here. You're just going to have to go through, collect some gear, see what kind of stuff goes with what, see what kind of builds you want to put together. But if you have an idea of what you would like to keep, right, let's say you're looking to put together a sniper build that deals with headshot damage and marksman rifles, then if you get brand sets that are focused around skills or armor regen and stuff like that, you're not going to need those. So just having some semblance of an idea of what you're looking for and what you want to prioritize, I think is going to help a lot. And then from there, on a specific piece of gear, you can either obviously keep it, or you can also press the mark button. Again, whatever keybind you're using, look at the bottom for which one it is. It's right trigger on console, and that allows you to mark an item for either donation, recalibration, or you can also mark it as junk, meaning anything you mark as junk you can delete, or if you have it set for donation or recalibration, that'll help you more easily find it when you're trying to use it with those specific systems. And the other big tip I will give here is to manage your inventory in increments. By that I mean, don't wait until you have 100 slots filled with new stuff that you're trying to wade through. Especially if you're a newer player, it will become very disorienting and much harder to try and sort through that much stuff, as opposed to, let's say every time you clear a control point, you have 8 or 9 new things in there, just go through them right then and there. You'll get faster at it, and it will be less interruptive towards your gameplay. Alright, now the second part of this guide and the overall other topic that we're going to cover is inventory and stash space. If you've been around the Division 2 and its community for any length of time, then you will probably know that this is a very big pain point. People want more space, and while it is easily one of the top requests for the game, the devs have unfortunately said that it's just not feasible. I won't get into the full details, but there are technical constraints. Now, it's also a very valid point to say, and this has been brought up before, that even if, let's say, hypothetically, players had 5,000 slots in this game to fill up, they would find things to fill those 5,000 slots with and still be asking for more. So to some extent, there is a level of needing to develop a healthy way to decide what to keep and what not to. I think people's biggest issue and complaint is that there's actually not enough space to keep one of everything in the game, and that is definitely unfortunate. But as I mentioned earlier on in the video, I'm somebody who plays all the time, and I only have one character's worth of inventory space, and my stash isn't completely full. So again, everyone is going to have their own preferences. I can only share what works for me, so let's go through it. When it comes to my stash and my inventory, I keep the following. I keep well-rolled or rarely rolled items that are, high-end or brand sets that I'm likely to use in a future build, right? I'm somebody who makes a lot of damage builds, so I definitely keep things like Striker, Hunter's Fury, Walker, Sokolov, Fenris, whereas I tend to keep less of skill build items because I just don't run those as much. Stuff like Wyvern, Alps, Murakami. So if you have a certain type of build or playstyle that you tend to gravitate towards, then keeping items for those purposes makes sense, whereas keeping items that aren't related to that typically don't. Beyond that, I keep one of every exotic or relevant named item. And by relevant, again, I mean stuff that is more likely to be used in builds that I would tend to use. But definitely I recommend keeping one of every exotic because you never know what sort of balancing shifts are going to be made. One thing that might not be very good now could definitely be in the future, and you don't want to have to regrind something that rare. Same philosophy as high ends, I do keep copies of gear set pieces and sets that I'm likely to use or that I rotate in and out of using. Striker, Hunter's Fury, True Patriot, things like that. Whereas I don't tend to keep things like Aces and Eights, Rigor, other items like that. And in combination, that kind of philosophy that I apply to inventory and stash management, I run with about 100 slots filled in my backpack and about 250 in my stash. And I know to some people, that's going to sound insane that I have that few amount of items, but it's true. And I know the biggest thing for a lot of players is that it can be very hard to deconstruct a, solidly rolled item, something that you think, oh, one day I could totally use this, or I could, reuse it in some other build. The fact of the matter is, and this is what really helps me in not feeling the urge to hoard everything, the Division 2 is a very farming-friendly game. With modes like Countdown and just the general targeted loot system in the game, you can pretty much always refarm something. Again, that's why I say keep rare items like exotics or high ends that are rolled really well, or just rare combinations that are tougher to get. But for regular high ends and gear sets, everything is reobtainable. And I mean that. One other tip that I do like to employ is that aside from the stuff that I use a lot, and I said before I don't keep any skill items, but even if I did, I probably wouldn't keep a lot of extra copies in my stash, because skill items, whether they are brand sets or even gear sets, are more so this way, they are super easy to farm. Given that the skill tier core attribute is static, there's no range of whether you'll get a good roll or a bad roll, you just have a skill tier or you don't. That means that especially skill-based gear sets are basically a one and done, right? You do one countdown run, target your loot on a specific one, let's say you're going for Eclipse, do one run, you get the pieces, and you can roll that secondary attribute to whatever you want, and you have a fully optimized build ready to go. It really just comes down to determining what is actually good and what is rare to get to drop and reacquire, versus stuff that just looks flashy on the screen because it has max stats, but it's not actually that viable or that applicable to many different build types. Another tip that I kind of go by, I keep about 40 to 50 slots open in my backpack at all times, only because it reduces the frustration of capping out out during gameplay, right? You're less likely to have to stop because you just can't pick anything else up. And it is about the perfect amount of space to fully fill up from one countdown run if I'm collecting everything that drops as junk. And so I think with that amount of margin left open in your backpack, you'll have better gameplay and it'll teach you to be more conservative about what you keep. And again, the most important thing you can take away from this, for the majority of items in this game, you can always farm it again. And living by that, that is how I keep all of my gameplay and items on one character. Some prefer having 4. If you do, more power to you. But those are just some of my thoughts and methods on the topic and conversation of inventory and stash management in The Division 2. I very much hope you all enjoyed the video, and I hope it was helpful to some degree. Whatever your reaction is, let me know down below. Is there anything you learned? Are there any tips that you have that you could share with the community? And if you have any follow-up questions, be sure to leave them down below and I will do my best to respond. But that's just about going to do it for me, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. RogueGold. Ow.